Hi, my name is Alai, and this is the first episode of Spiral Revival. So I just want to take this introductory episode to talk about who I am and where my curiosity in these topics that I'm going to talk about here are stemming from, and what those topics even are going to be. So I guess just the purpose of starting this podcast, Spiral Revival, is really to dig deep into myself and find the things that make up my disposition and share them with the world, and bring some other people on and have them share parts of their disposition with the world, because I feel like I really want this to be something that cultivates a community which benefits greatly and is aware of the benefit of everybody sharing their perspectives, their worldviews in a very vulnerable and real way. Because when we become aware of that benefit, we see that receiving everybody's worldview and expressing your own worldview is creating a very holistic and whole image of this dream that we're in, of the world, of our current reality, the human reality. And therefore we gain a deeper and better and clearer understanding of the world that we're in order to transcend it, I guess. I think there's a quote from Albert Einstein that says, we have to know our limits to go beyond them. So what kind of topics am I hoping to explore here? And first off, I just want to be totally honest and say that I definitely am nervous right now. Mainly, I think, because this is something that I've been working on for a really long time, dreaming about for a really long time. And it's a little nerve-wracking actually putting into practice, because there's been so many parts that have been coming together, kind of setting the stage, and then the last thing is for me to just walk up on stage and just do it, and it's definitely nerve-wracking. But I know that facing those fears and those things that make you nervous definitely lead to like greater heights. I remember whenever I'm about to do something that makes me nervous, I think about my first kiss, because I was very, 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 very nervous. It literally felt like that was going to be the end of the world. And then I had my first kiss, and I remember thinking, wow, I'm never going to be that nervous again. Like, that was it. And now I'm on this new level of being kissed. And so now I can kiss people and not get insanely nervous. So I hope that it's going to happen that way here as well, and I won't get insanely nervous the next time as well. But yeah, let me just talk about myself for a little bit, even though it's something I don't like to do that much. At least I don't think I like to do it that much. I probably do. Another thing about me is I really don't like labels very much at all in any situation. Have a weird relationship with language, but it helps us understand the world. So, I am a Latina female. I am 21 years old, just turned 21, Pisces, and yeah, I was born in Panama. My parents are Venezuelan. We came here when I was about 3 years old, and we lived in Burlington, Vermont for a bit in the forest, and then when I was about 3, moved to Southern California, and I've been living here for most of my life. I did just live in Spain for the past 2 years about going to school, because the initial reason was because the school in the United States is really, really expensive, and Spanish is my first language, so I thought, why not just go to university in Spain, not even like with a program, just go there, because it's like 1,000 euros a year about, so not 20,000. So yeah, I was living in Spain for a while, and then COVID happened, brought me back here. Everything happens for a reason, and yeah. Now I'm living in Costa Mesa in this beautiful space with my partner and my roommate Sophia, and we're just making art and working and dreaming, dream weaving. I guess a lot of the topics that I want to talk about here would fall under the categories of philosophy, mythology, exploring these different possibilities and ways that we can create a more mutually beneficial society. And on the other hand, looking inward and healing ourselves and exploring our limiting beliefs, our deepest wishes, and how we can manifest that and bring that into our world. So yeah, I think these kinds of ideas and these thoughts and this perspective has always been with me, as I know it has been with so many people, and especially, I mean, humans throughout time. We're all very similar, but I do see a lot of people around me right now and just in our world really waking up to our fullest potentials and trying our best to realize the greatest good that we can in this lifetime. And I think that those kinds of thoughts have always been in us. And I know that with me, I just remember being born and immediately being in like a total fantasy fairyland and having really intense dreams that were clearly about, I don't want to say like past lifetimes because that sounds like, oh, okay. But like before I even knew that term, it was kind of like, oh, okay, this wasn't my life. This was something else. Or just going to other planes of existence. And then coming into our world and seeing things and understanding the world for the first time. This is as like a 3-year-old. It's such a vulnerable space, because whatever someone tells you, you're seeking the truth, you're seeking the knowledge. And so whatever somebody tells you is going to be fit into this, at that point, such a small version of the world and the reality that we're now in and that we've been brought into. And in that space, I definitely remember feeling fairy energies and just mystical worlds all around that maybe other people couldn't see. Yeah, I know. So, like, for example, let's see. The night my brother was born, December 3rd, 2004, I was at a friend's house because my mom was giving birth in the hospital. And I was laying on the top bunk and I couldn't fall asleep because obviously my brother was being born. That's really exciting. And I remember kind of like having my eyes closed and then like seeing like a bright light. So I opened my eyes and I thought maybe it was a car coming through the driveway because, maybe my brother was born, they're picking me up. And so I was paying attention, but then I realized it wasn't like a car. It was actually like this light that was like the flashlight light from a little miniature officer made out of like sparks that was walking on my stomach and like pointing it at my face. And behind him were like a bunch of mini spark people, townspeople, and they were all very curious. They were all very confused and they were questioning me and trying to figure out how I had gotten there, who I was. And from that night on, like in my bedroom at night in the darkness, how you can see like next time you're in the dark, if you don't know what I'm talking about already, just look into the darkness and you'll see a bunch of different sparks. And so from those sparks, there was miniature people that I could play with. There was like rainbow blobs of light. There was butterflies. I could like create spheres in between my hands. And this is as like, I don't know, like 3, 4 to like 7 years old about, which is interesting because I could get into that, why that stopped at 7. But yeah, so worlds like that, and then also, dreams and experiences. Just, it reminds me of a quote from Plato that talks about how we never learn anything, we just remember, because he's somebody who believes in the eternal soul and in past lives and in reincarnation. And so it's like we've been here many times before, we've learned these things, and so kind of when we're brand new, this odd deja vu or feeling. And so questioning the world that we're being told about, that's being built all around us as we're little, that's been a big part of my life, which actually connects to the book that I've written that I'm funding and getting the first print run done right now of, called That's Just Reality. And that name came about because questioning the reality, that's often an answer that I would receive. And I would question, and this isn't to be like, I was always questioning reality, angsty teen, but more just kind of like questioning the way that we do things and like, why are we doing things that are destroying our environment if we can clearly see that we're destroying our environment? Like that was a huge sense of anxiety for me. Like I stayed up for nights, and it's like when I would talk to adults about it, I would often get that answer, like, that's just the way that things are, that's just reality, that's just how it is. And so I quickly became very aware of that kind of just feeling of doom. I don't know how to pronounce this word because I keep hearing different ways to pronounce this word, but nihilism. Okay, nihilism. That was so evident in a lot of the adults that I had experiences with. And even what made me really alarmed was when it was in children my age, because their parents had embedded it in them already. And so it was this like dying of the dream, dying of the people who are like, who else is going to change it if we're all just accepting it, And so that was really stressful. But yeah, it's grown, it's developed into the way that I live my life, into the relationships I make, into the art that I make, into the things that I do. And, this is another product of that. And I know that a lot of us are feeling very similarly and the same, because that's the call, that's the mission that we're brought here for, is like, Earth is kind of dealing with some stuff right now. We need to be here and help out. So, and that's not like coming from a belief that, oh yeah, there's the select few that have been called here. All of us have been called here. I think that that's something that happens in like the spiritual community, is like, oh, we're the rainbow children, and it's like, yes, but if you are, we all are. It's not like, then it just becomes the whole thing of like, oh yeah, we're the chosen ones, but for some reason all these other humans aren't. It's just a difference of levels of ignorance and awareness, that's all. But yeah, levels of ignorance and awareness, worldviews, different perspectives, different reasons, but it all makes sense. It's not all fair, it's not all beautiful, but it all makes sense. What else did I want to get into? So Dated is a platform that I created. It started out as like a few zines, and an exploration of creativity after like a kind of like my second individuation, like when I was like about 16 or 17, and coming into more of myself and my creative potential, and curating all those things and finding the special stuff inside of other people and sharing it. People are told and sold the idea that we have to be in a competitive state of mind and our creativity comes second or last, and we have to be, I don't know, like always on like fight or flight mode, and not to really value the things that feed our soul. And a lot of people, including myself, were so unaware of the self-love journey that was just right in front of us. And like so many people don't even embark on it because they don't even know that it's right there. And so Dated now is kind of just this space which in many different mediums is facilitating and holding space for that exploration, that curiosity, and those experiences and connections. So we're very community oriented, very collective oriented, based on not based on this idea, but the basis of it is similar to Immanuel Kant's idea of treating, what was it called, categorical imperative. I read it in Spanish, so I'm not sure how it is in English, but he talks about how the categorical imperative is that you treat others as ends in themselves and not means to an end. So, for example, when you're dealing with somebody within your community, if it's a bartender, you don't treat that bartender as a means to get your drink. You treat him as a goal, as an end in himself, like as a final entity, thing in itself, not just a way to get something that you want. And promoting those kinds of interactions with nonviolent communication, and really connecting to the people that you're working with and finding mutually beneficial connections that are feeding each other's dreams, And so we have a market, which is where at this point I'm curating lots of different amazing talented makers. These gloves are made by Emily McPhee in London, and they're in the market right now. Quite a few of them sold, but I'm sure there's some more. And a lot of other amazing people. And yeah, so there I kind of like run the marketplace, do marketing, have it on a website where people can, from all over the world, can then shop those items and learn about new creators. Then there's the study, which is where we have people who really enjoy writing. I really love writing, to talk about their personal experiences within the collective. We talk about mythology, we talk about climate restoration, technology, because there's a lot going on with algorithms and just the progression of technology, which is kind of happening right under our noses, and it's shortening our attention span, so we like can't even see what's coming next, and it's a lot. So we need to get more aware of that. And then now, this podcast, and yeah, lots of big ideas and fun ways to execute them. Also, a big fuel for a lot of the things that I want to be talking about on here philosophically stemmed from my experience in Valladolid, La Universidad de Valladolid in Spain, where I studied philosophy on accident because, well, not on accident, I just wasn't aware that that was the plan. But I went there with the plan that I had for a couple years at that point to become an architect. And my great-grandfather studied and was a professor at that university, and he, I think, studied architecture for a bit, but he ended up being a writer. Same. Okay. He ended up being a writer, and so I wanted to go to school in Spain, and that one came up because it's like, oh, well, your great-grandfather went here. So I went there, and then basically it turns out that in Spain, in high school, your last 2 years are your bachillerato. I said that so bad. Okay. Bachillerato or something like that. Like your bachelor's, but it's your last 2 years of high school, and basically you choose like different routes that you could possibly take that and those classes are determining, like, okay, let's say you want to go into like English, filosofía y letras, so like language and philosophy. Your last 2 years of high school are going to be based around the idea that it's like, this is kind of what you're going into, which is a way better way to do things, right? Or let's say you want to do like architecture or design, then you're going to take classes like technical drawing and that special math kind of stuff. So I had been going to these classes at this architecture school. Well, it was a university, but the architecture part of it. And I mean, first of all, everything was in Spanish, which I was aware of, but it's still difficult. And second, I learned that everyone else had already taken 2 years of like these really difficult drawing classes and all this stuff. So they were 2 years ahead of me. And when I told the teachers, like, they just told me like, oh, you better learn fast. And like, it just didn't feel right at all. So I remember I walked home crying one day all the way across the city to my like shoebox dorm room with like cardboard walls. But honestly, so grateful for it. Don't want to talk badly. And I decided to switch my major, which again, because the schools are different there, that is not a thing that is done there at all, because you're basically given those 2 years in high school to figure it out. And so then by the time you're in college, and so there's no like transferring or changing. There's no counselors to talk to help you out, There's also no general ed, which is great. Like if you choose something, that's the classes you're taking. You're fully immersed in it, which is something I love. So I was like, okay, what else does this school have? And it was between art history and philosophy, and I honestly didn't really care for art history that much. Like, I was like, I'm just going to spend this year doing philosophy because I worked my ass off to get this student visa. I'm here, so I had to fully drop out of the school and reapply and wait to be accepted for the philosophy thing. So yeah, I got in, started doing that, and that absolutely changed my life. Studying philosophy because, again, fully immersed. Like my classes were basically like history of philosophy, ethics, anthropology, fully just, that's all I was doing all day. And because, I was a good student, even though none of my credits were going to go towards anything, like I wasn't planning on using it for anything, it really just was like a personal thing. And that's how I've choose to kind of take my education, is like, how can this benefit me? I don't really care about the points very much. I'd go to these classes every day, even though I wasn't getting any points for them, and just learning for the sake of it, like not for the grade. And that actually led me to getting very good grades, because I would fully just, I had no friends, and that was another thing. I was really going through like a level of ego death, like not in like a I don't know, like I'm transcended, but just really like parts of my ego that were stripped away entirely. Like nobody knew who my friends were, and what I wore really didn't matter because the style was very different, and nobody knew I was like from Laguna Beach, you know. And it's like these are all things I had already believed that I didn't care about, you know. But when you take away like your family, your friends, your cool town, and where you went to school, and the car you drive, and you take it all away, and it's literally just you, and you're in a foreign country where people have to really be patient to talk to you and understand what you're saying, because Spanish is my first language, but first of all, it's Latin Spanish, and it's different, and also it wasn't something I spoke very often, so people have to be really patient with you. And so I learned a way of navigating and existing in the world that isn't based on my exterior shell. It's based on who I am, how I speak, and what I have to say, and the respect I have for the person I'm talking to, and if they find me interesting as who I really am, you know. And that was something that in Southern California wasn't as I'm not going to say it's non-existent, but it wasn't a very valued or common or popular way to go about the world, because there's so much sparkle on everything, you know. It's just like, which is great, it's very beautiful, and everything is very artistic, but you know, there's a lot of facade, and there's a lot of like, everyone in a way is playing a character. Like, you know, I'm the cowgirl, and I'm the, like, I don't know, especially now with TikTok, it's very emphasized, like different personalities and characters that you're playing, like, oh, I'm alt, I'm whatever. And so all of that was stripped away because it really didn't matter there. And so, you know, I was studying philosophy every single day, learning about Plato and about Aristotle and about Socrates and about Epicteto and Heraclitus, and the way that the humans have been really thinking in the pure thought, pure reason is timeless, and it's coming from an eternal divine place, because it's more or less unchanging. These divine experiences and teachings are true throughout space and time, and you can choose to look at people's beliefs and people's philosophies throughout time as like looking at all the differences and like, I don't know, but for me all I was seeing was the similarities. The differences almost seem like cosmetic or superficial, but the similarities are something true and eternal. And realizing that, because I had already studied a lot of Eastern philosophy, and I'd never given second thought to like Greek philosophy. It just kind of sounded like a bunch of old white dudes, but you know, it was really something beautiful. And I mean, truthfully, a lot of them did really get these ideas from India, of course, and that's not something very talked about, but they were able to present it in a totally new way that wasn't kind of subdued, and not subdued, but dressed with all of the embellishments that India in their philosophy did, with like, you know, gods and all these stories, you know. What the Greek philosophers are providing is a way, a new worldview, a new perspective. It's very based in logic and pure reason and intelligence and experience and the world around us, and not believing as in so many things. And I think it was a totally new perspective, and my days were pretty much filled with walking, because basically the architecture school campus was, school started at 8 a.m. and it was like a 20-minute bus ride, and then philosophy was a 3-minute walk and it started at 9, so it was just like perfect. And I would walk through the trees, through this nest of stray cats, get to my philosophy class, and if I got really, really inspired by something, I would just walk to my dorm room and just write, you know. And that's actually how my book came about. That's just reality. Is like, you know, really presenting these ideas, these ancient texts and ancient philosophies that are really timeless, in a way that, you know, the reader doesn't have to believe anything, and it's simplified, not in a way where it's like dumbed down, but in a way where it's easily accessible and just kind of stripped to something universal, and in the way that I could. And yeah, that year really became almost like a retreat for me, like an unintentional voyage that really transformed me spiritually, because I didn't have very many friends. I met some really cool friends in philosophy class, but it was pretty much just kind of like studying philosophy, writing, biking to the river, sitting with the ducks, and then I started doing Kundalini. So I was doing Kundalini 2 times a week, and my meals were actually from the dorms I was staying in. So, and in Spain, being vegan, I'm vegan, isn't very common. So I would basically just be eating lentils like every single day and an orange, and it just became a very ritualistic and pure life. And that's been my peak in my life so far as like mental heights and abilities and connection to the divine expression and all that. And so that period of my life has really inspired me to really express my truth and express my personal experiences, because I know how valuable they are for me. And if I talk about them, hopefully it, not that I think I should, I don't know, be a validation for others, but like sharing these ideas, hopefully if somebody maybe, because we really bury these things deep because they don't seem real here. And so it might give validation or validity, or allow people to really see their experiences, their spiritual experiences, as just as real as this world, because that's something that seems so truthful and self-evident to me, that this metaphysical world and this dream world is just as real as this world, because I have learned from so many teachers throughout space and time about the truths of perception and illusion, and what really is our reality, and the photons that are reflected back to us, they're just atoms, and and the personal experience, that projection is a reality. So anything that is personally experienced is just as real as any other thing that's personally experienced. So when you're awake and you're personally experiencing something, that is just as real as when you're dreaming and you're personally experiencing something. So by sharing these personal experiences in the dream worlds, in the metaphysical worlds, in the spiritual worlds, and in this world, and everywhere, bringing that and making the unconscious conscious, it's the biggest thing. And yeah, getting into okay, that was a mission. That whole story was such a journey, but I think it's done. Now getting into, I guess, like where the name Spiral Revival came from. So for me, I'm a huge student of Terence McKenna. I love Terence McKenna because, again, psychonaut, explorer of the mental, metaphysical world of energies and spirits and the unseen, but the real. And he is a scientist, so, he's very matter of fact and talking about personal experiences and things that basing beliefs off of truths. It's hard to explain, but if you haven't listened to Terence McKenna, just listen and you'll understand. But he talks a lot about the archaic revival. This is a big mission for him in his lectures, is the archaic revival, bringing back the mainly indigenous way of life that's very cyclical and respectful, and of the cycles and the circles. I know some of you are following along with this. And the divine feminine, a more divine feminine way of life, a more matriarchal way of life, balanced, one might say, connected to nature, and bringing that into this modernized world, incorporating it, making the unconscious conscious. And so I wanted to use that idea of the archaic revival, but obviously I'm not going to just steal that idea. So I was thinking of things that really represent that for me, and the spiral is huge because I've always been attracted to the shape, of course, but there's something about it in the way the structure of our reality, I believe, is very spiralized and cyclical, of course, and DNA, double helix, and flower of life, whatever. These are all different models for the same kind of structure. And so the spiral revival, awareness of that spiral, awareness of that round, cyclical relationship with our time-space reality that we have the potential of having. Right now, we're in a very square, linear, patriarchal perception of our reality. And yeah, so bringing those circles back, spiral revival, baby. And then after I had chosen the name, I learned about this concept, this idea called spiral dynamics, this model of the different worldviews that we hold. And that's something I'm going to get into and have a whole episode for. But it was really interesting because I learned about it right after I chose the name, and it's really aligned with everything that I want to be doing here and all the things I want to be talking about. Thank you so much for listening to the first episode in this introduction of myself and my mission and why I'm talking about this and where I'm coming from. And yeah, I think, if you're watching this on YouTube, subscribe, and just thank you for listening and tuning in. I'm really happy to have spent my time doing this and sharing and finally embarking on this journey, and I really hope that you listen and we can explore some really interesting topics together. Much love. Have a beautiful day. And I know I wouldn't listen to this if I'm like having a bad mood, having a bad day, or like just really don't want to go outside, but like really go outside and be in nature and feel some grass and honestly just feel the sun on your skin. You can just go to the window and do that, or put your feet in the grass. Do it for you. Love you.